Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. I'm preempting our last Pride Month video with something that is more timely at this point for us to discuss. In case you didn't know already, or in case you're living in another country and thankfully far away from our news here in the US, as recently as Friday, the Supreme Court of the United States has made a statement that overturns Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade was a historic legal case that ensured that women had legal access to abortion. In the 50 years since that ruling, there have been numerous, specifically religious organizations that have tried to overturn it. And one of the things in the US that we do need to be aware of is that in its founding, the intention was for most laws, most regulation, most oversight to exist within the state and not within the federal government. That's also been an issue between the two major parties in the US, the Republicans and Democrats. Republicans are allegedly for less governmental oversight, and the Democrats are allegedly for more governmental oversight. That's the generalization. The reason all these things are very important is because in the overturning of this landmark case, it has sparked raging fires of dissent and confusion and fear and anger, and I don't think I'd be doing my job if I was not coming to you with some clarification about what happened, with some information on how you can help protect yourself, and some real answers on what may be coming for us. Let's start with how this happened. The case that came to Supreme Court came out of Mississippi, and the abortion ban in Mississippi at 15 weeks was being challenged for constitutionality. The statement that has come out of the Supreme Court specifically says that the Constitution does not allow for any rights to abortion, and the Supreme Court sees their job as upholding the Constitution. So since the Constitution did not allow for any of this, then it's not something that the Supreme Court is supposed to uphold, according to them. As you can see, there's some problems here. Number one being the fact that at the time that the Constitution was written, women didn't have rights. So there's that. They weren't allowed to own land, and they weren't allowed to, vote. So the fact that no women could be involved in the writing of the Constitution, we're still dealing with this article from over 200 years ago that is now governing women's rights to their own bodies. I feel like it shouldn't be hard to understand why that's a problem, but it is apparently hard for people to understand what the problem is. So the major argument from specifically religious organizations is that they believe that life begins at conception, and so once a baby is conceived, it is a human with feelings and rights, specifically with legal rights. And the argument from anyone else is that a woman's body is not subject to the rights of something that's not even actually alive or able to survive on its own. Abortion itself has become this thing that some people will sort of villainize and some people will idolize, and somewhere in there gets lost the message that it's actually no one else's business what someone wants to do with their body. So there's that. Once the Supreme Court made their ruling and overturned Roe v. Wade on the basis of the fact the Constitution did not protect the rights of women's bodies, 13 states in the U.S., so 13 of our 50 states, had trigger laws that went into effect immediately, banning abortions either ever or after 15 weeks or a variety of other things. But 13 of our states had put these laws into effect knowing that this was going to be happening. Why? Because a couple of weeks ago, a draft was leaked and confirmed to be accurate by the Supreme Court that said this decision was going to be coming. You'd think it wouldn't be a shock, right? I don't know about any of you, but I had to take the rest of the day Friday and actually just not talk to anybody. It was not a great day. The fact that I live now in a state that does ban abortions after 15 weeks is an aside at this point. The bigger problem that I am seeing right now is the real fear about what happens next. First of all, what happens to people who are already pregnant and were trying to figure out what they were going to do? Now that we've removed bodily autonomy from women, what do we do next? Because that's what was done. We're not about protecting kids because we also haven't passed any comprehensive legislation that limits weapons or access to anything else that actually harms kids, but we are making them be born. And along with all of these opinions and the things that get released when the Supreme Court makes a decision, 3 landmark cases were identified as a suggestion that we relook at them as a Supreme Court because they fall under the same umbrella where the rights that they protect are not rights afforded people by the Constitution. 2 of those cases have very specific impact on most of the audience on this channel. One of them is the case that made it illegal for states to criminalize same-sex sex. And the other one was the one that made it illegal for states to not allow same-sex marriage. Let's be clear, that case is not currently on the table to be overturned. Should that case be overturned, it's not really likely that people who are already married will have their marriage rights removed. If they live in a state that already has a ban on same-sex marriage or has not made provision for same-sex marriage to be legal, then their marriage will not be recognized in that state. And that is a problem, not just because, well, hey, why are we married in one state and not another, but also for things like medical decisions, for estate planning, for safety and security of one another, for all number of things that are protections afforded to married couples. They will then be removed from those people if they are living in a state where that is not recognized. It will also be removed should they be traveling and stop in a state that does not recognize it, and something then happens. Those two people are not married legally in that state. So I think you can see the problems there, right? Back to the specific case, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the things people are bringing up, and I want to be really honest with you about some of them. First of all, there's a lot of debate over whether DNCs and ectopic pregnancies are going to be considered abortions. And there's a lot of very, very strong opinions on both sides. And I'm here to tell you that all the opinions are right, because not even so long ago, I personally know somebody who has given me permission to tell this story. They were having a miscarriage and they went to a hospital that was a religiously funded hospital. It was a Catholic hospital. And that was their nearest hospital, so that's where they went. The hospital would not perform a DNC because they did not have, proof that she had actually miscarried. So she had to go home and spend 3 days attempting to pass the miscarriage through her body. When she couldn't, she came back and they did an ultrasound before they would do the DNC. So those 4 days of absolute terror and honestly torture for this person existed simply because she went to a Catholic hospital. That was when abortions were legal. Is it likely that every hospital is going to treat a DNC like an abortion? No, it is not likely. Is it possible that you could be the one who ends up going to a hospital that does? Yeah, it is possible. If it is ever possible, that's a problem. Access to necessary health care should be a right for every human. Not having access to that health care does actually put in jeopardy your emotional well-being as well as your physical well-being. If you live in the US, you live in a country that says that it was founded on religious principles. In reality, it was founded by a bunch of religious zealots who weren't happy with the zealot over there, so they came over here to be zealots here. However, it's not okay for people who have a belief because of a religious system to impose their religious system and their religious beliefs on other people who do not subscribe to the same beliefs. I'm pretty sure that's, as a country, what we've been fighting in lots of littler countries against somewhere east of me. Right? The anger and the frustration that people are feeling right now is real and valid. Putting our own definitions of things on people and expecting them to follow through the definition is exactly what the problem is here. We do not live in a nation that obeys the Bible as law. The Bible is not the law of the land, and therefore the law of the land should not be made based on the Bible. Just like the law of the land shouldn't be based on our hurt, it shouldn't be based on fear, it should be based on people's rights. And the bottom line is, this has removed a significant amount of rights from an entire group, depending on the numbers you're looking at, the biggest group of our country. It was done in a way that was so appalling and so blatant and so blunt. You may or may not know this, but 3 of the 6 justices that voted to overturn Roe v. Wade in their confirmation hearings all said Roe v. Wade was the law of the land, and they would not overturn it. 3 of them flat out said it. Watched it with my own eyes. Here we are. The fear comes in when we realize we can't trust things that we see with our own eyes. The fear comes in now when we don't know what comes next and we grab onto things like, well, what does this mean? And what's going to happen here? And what's going to happen there? And that's really what I want you to understand from this video, is that that fear is natural. It is normal. Allow yourself to feel it. Find something that is comforting for you. Find something that is real and that is steady for you, and hold on to that. when this fear comes. For clients that have anxiety, I often encourage them to make lists. Make a list of the things that you know to be true.
I'm a pet and this is their name.
I enjoy being out in the sunshine.
I love this song.
Give yourself 5 things that you know to be true that holds on to who you are as a person. And when things get scary and when things get the way they are right now, allow yourself to be reminded of the things that you know to be true that will ground you and allow you to go through some of this fear, some of this anger, and some of this sadness in a way that gets you to the other side. However you are feeling right now is valid. There's an author that I love so very much, and I hope that you've read at least one of her books. If you haven't, I'd really encourage you to run out and get one. Maybe Untamed, that would be a good one. Her name is Glennon Doyle, and one of the things that she says repeatedly, she talks about first the pain, then the waiting, then the rising. We try so hard to jump to the rising, to jump to the next fight, to say, we're going to get in there, we're going to be active, we're going to make action, we're going to make something happen. And that is all great. Having that initiative to make change is such a great way to deal with stress and fear and pain and sadness. But you've got to feel it first. The emotions of the things that are happening around you in your personal life, bigger picture, in your state or in your country, you need to feel it. And then you need to give yourself a minute. Just wait a minute before you jump into action. Because the action that you take from that is not action if you haven't taken the minute, then it's reaction. Some great things can happen from reaction, but more often than not, reactive responses burn out quickly, leave you more frustrated, and don't actually enact any change. Allow yourself to feel the pain, give yourself a minute, and then decide where you're going with it. That is the healthiest way through this. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. Next week, we will do our final Pride video. I hope that you're doing well, and I will see you again next week. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.